Hey guys, it's me again, Orchlayer. What ifs? Where we last left off, I think. Well, checking. Where we last left off, Where we last left off. Yeah, okay. Bell essentially went to the dungeon by himself. For the first time in a while, actually, because Welf and Lily both want to have some time off. As he was down there, he was finally, after a period of time, attacked by the dragon cult members that were sent by Konerik, or Zalak, whichever you prefer. As that happened, a couple adventurers happened upon the situation, were attacked, were able to get away as the Loki Familia, like eyes in them, saw them, and then like eyes, Bet, and Tion and Tiana both rushed in to assist Bell, as he was quite battered by that point. That being said, he was sort of like healed up and sent off on his own. That being said, Bell decides to take a rest day, as he has some like normal clothes that he just wears, so that way he isn't constantly walking around in his heavy armor. As when he goes out that day, he's like, sorry. As he walks around just thinking, what to do? What can I do? As he's running it through his head, as he's like, no, I'll check out the hostess of fertility. There's nothing else better to do. As he walks over there, it's like early in the morning, as he's like, Seer, hello? Anybody home? As then Seer pops out, he's like, yeah, I'm taking the day off. She's like, oh, did something happen? He's like, nothing too bad. As he doesn't want to worry her or anything, or let anybody know about the existence of the dragon cult just yet. He then asks her, so, what do you do on your days off? He's like, because I do not know much about that sort of stuff, Miss Seer. I typically just keep on going day in, day out. She's like, well, I like to read. As then she brings him a book. As it's like, whoa, ow. Sorry. I was just cracked my neck the wrong way. As with that being said and such, he's like, okay, this book, she's like, yeah, one of our people left it here. So, he's like, so I can just borrow it? She's like, yeah, it shouldn't be fine. As he's like, well, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Seer. As he wanders off back to the whole church. As with that, he makes his way back to the church. As he has arrived, he sits down on the couch as he... I never understood why didn't he just sit on the couch. He got a stool when there's a perfectly good bed or couch to lay in. It's perfect time to go to sleep as well if you get bored or fall asleep while reading the book. Sorry. As he's reading a book, he still has that same vision quest. But the questions are different. It's like, what is magic? He's like, I don't know. Don't know what magic is. It's like, then what is it that you want to stand strong even when I'm not at my greatest? It's like, how would you do it? I would increase my resistance to pain and magic itself. It's like, any form of magic? Yes. I will stand in the way to assist people. And to fight the things that no one else is able. As is the will of Akatosh and the rest. Like, very well then. As then he gains a magic ability. known as in game. It's known as sorry. It's known as what was that spell called? I'm making one on my mind. Resistance, meaning whenever he cast it, any magic thereon for a period of time will therefore not have any sort of effect on him, such as curses and such. But take note, he has to apply it beforehand. And he can use it a total of 3 times a day. And each one will last a total of 2 to 3 hours. Which, considering how long he stays in the dungeon, is not a long time. No. He can scratch that, not 2 to 3 hours. Instead, well, 30 minutes is how long he has for each of the little things. 3 times a day, 30 minutes. Not all together, but it's like 30 minutes each time you cast it. As with that being said, as Hestia still has the whole, Belle, this is a grimoire. You're in debt now, as she goes to dispose of the book. But he pretty much snatches it away from her as she tries to run away with it. As then he decides to do what would probably be the best thing. As he hands it back to Seer and such. As Seer tries to say, "No, how could you?" As he's like, "Forgive me, but I had no idea it was a grimoire. So, I would ask you forgive me," as he gives a bow to Mamma Mia and such. As she's like, "What's done is done." As he still woke up and it's like the next day. So he's like, "Forgive me, I did not know." As the whole, "What's done is done," as he's like, "But I'm sure," she's like, "Listen, kid." He's like, "I'm 20. She's like, "Alright, listen, young man." As he's like, "Yes, ma'am. Nobody knows about this besides us. And if the customer comes asking, we'll just say that we never saw it. Good?" It's like, "Yes. Good. Now, go on and get out of here." As she does the whole slap him on the back. He's like, "Yes, ma'am." Sorry. As he goes off. As now is the time for the whole descending down into the lower levels. As Belle and Lily and Belle and Lily and Welf are celebrating before they go deep down, as they go farther as they would. They go to the hosted fertility as they typically would in the anime. Oh, sorry. As they go down into, well, not go down, but go there as Seer and such, give them the whole, get them the drinks and such. It's like, "Are you sure you're gonna be okay there on their Belle? You did get hurt last time." He's like, as he says, "I was unprepared. It descended upon me before I even noticed. I will not make the same mistake again." It's like, as they say, "Why didn't you just use your shouts?" He's like, "It hit me really hard and broke my jaw." Came out of nowhere. As you know, I don't wear a helmet, so I was able to hit my jaw quickly and break it. Luckily, the Loki Familia was there. They gave me a bit of help. It's like, whoa, well, whatever hit you, whatever was able to get to you fast enough, and was also able to allow you to level up, must have been something. He's like, "Yeah." As, if I remember correctly, this is how the level up system works. It's like the term adventurer is literal. You have to go on an adventure. It's like every time you do something great, it overcharges your soul or something or another. It's a very complicated system from what I remember, listening to about it. As Belle and as Ryu's talking about, maybe you should get a 4th person. He's like, "No, we're pretty good with the 3 people. He's like, yeah, but the dungeon on the lower levels becomes a numbers game. They'll throw smaller, easy challenges at you, but in greater number. They'll overwhelm you with amount of numbers. As he's like, Lily and Wolf both say, well, with Bell, I bet we can survive anything. I bet he could even take on a dungeon boss by himself. Is what Wolf says. As Lily's like, let's not overdo it, Mr. Crozo. As Bell says, he says maybe a lower level dungeon boss. Nothing too big, otherwise he actually might lose. Because he says that his magic could only do so much. And if he overuses it, it could, destroy his... it could start to hurt his throat a little bit. Though, granted, it takes a while for that to actually happen. As it what does your throat have to do with anything? He says... He thinks it over... sorry. He thinks it over and gives an explanation saying, I focus the magic into words. The words become more powerful, the more strain they leave on my throat. Just as someone sings for a long period of time or yells. For instance, let's say a small whisper compared to a large shout, as he says it. A whisper you can do for hours, but the output of the volume is less, extremely so. A shout is shorter, but its sound is greater. Well, if you keep shouting, you lose your voice. If you whisper, nothing really hears it. As he gives the explanation. It's like when you helped me forge this sword, as he brings up... Sorry? Don't know why I'm yawning. He brings up his sword with this. I used a low, quiet but concentrated magic. As it's like, so, is that all you can do? The throat magic? He says no. After leveling up, he adds that, acquired the ability to increase magic resistance. As he puts it simply as that, it's like, oh really? He's like, I can resist fire, ice, dark magic, blood magic. As he gives a list, it will be quite useful if we encounter anything of the likes. As I forget his name, it's the guy who pretty much makes trouble with Bell the first, when he was there with just Lily. And he's like, oh, you're having a party here. Well, as he does the whole, comes up with a scenario, talks about sharing the girls, as Belle says, well, they are not mine, first of all. Second of all, this is just a drink, and get together. Oh, sorry. Yawning so much it's starting to hurt my jaw. Is just a small get-together between friends. Well, between familia members and family members of the familia member. Oh, he's like, you guys related? He's like, yes, by orphanage. Yes, we grew outside of the orphanages. Yes, as Lily is the one making up the lie. She's like, yep, she was sort of our older sister. It's like, an elf. He's like, yep, believe it or not. As then they said, Seer was the one watching after us, and Bell was the big brother. Me and Welf here, well, you see, Welf was the troublemaker of our group, and I was the thief, as she says. In a second, he's like, oh, really? What sort of stuff did you nick? She says, well, I would take small things, like a ring here, a ring there. A few valise here and there, nobody would notice. Sometimes they even took people's shoestrings. Don't know why. He's like, well, it's like, huh, that's funny. as he then goes back to sit down with his mates. As they finish eating and they head down to the dungeon the next day. As he still gets that whole red cloak thing, as his armor is getting worse for wear, as she's like, Belle, are you sure you shouldn't get some new armor? He's like, well, hold up for now. I've spoken to Welf. He says we can try to get me a new set of armor by the time we come back up, but we can't delay. Plus, this would provide materials to make that armor, especially if they're monster drops, as he says it. Like, we'll be okay. As he gives a bow, we'll... God damn it. We'll be okay, Lady Hestia, as he gives his bow. As it's like, Belle, it's time to go. She's like, alright. As he sets off, she's like, be careful, Belle. He's like, I will, Lady Hestia. You have my word. As they descend down into the dungeon. As Belle and them are quickly, slowly but surely start getting attacked by all those monsters and such that they do in the anime. Belle, focuses on using his words of power, try and clear out as many enemies as he can. At one point, he uses the ice breath shout, or ice form, as he freezes like an entire pillar of enemies frozen stiff, as then he switches to fire breath, as he just lays down fire all around them, covering their entire back, as Welf and Lily are continuously trying to keep themselves on the top. With Belle eventually having them all, it's like, as he uses unrelenting force, as they get, the paraded, I believe it's past paraded or something like that is what the words they use, where the Mikado and her little familia lead the group of monsters into their pathway, essentially. As Belle says, alright, you two, get behind me. As he lets out, as he says, get behind me, as he lets out, sorry about that, as he lets out unrelenting force. Not max power, but a decent power, as he lets it out, as it shakes the cavern, as a few rocks and even tumble to the ground, as they're like, huh, as Mikado and them, as Mikado's like, was that Wraith Bone? A Bone Wraith? As they're running by, they saw him use his unrelenting force as they rushed down the passageway. And then even like I said, the rubble fell from the ceiling. As they took care of that, they literally ran past them, trying to completely ignore the monsters. As Belle and them focused on running, as Belle used ice form to freeze monsters in the pathway of other monsters. That way it formed a little wall, sort of. But the monsters quickly maneuvered around them. As he says, as he's thinking about it, he says he uses, dismay. As he uses it, it causes a few of them to flee, but not all of them. As he wasn't able to fully power it up, because monster threw an axe as he was about to use the word. As it threw it, he immediately sort of got close to his head, as he was able to dodge it, as he messed it up in that split second. Even after years, having an axe coming straight to your face can make you go whoa, as he was whoa, as he messed it up, as it didn't work all the way. As he's like, know what? As he uses the full power of disarm, where he completely, as he looks back, disarms every single one of those bunnies and makes their weapons go everywhere. As then he uses unrelenting force, as then it forced all the bunnies going completely back. And as they were pushed back, so were the weapons. So more monsters were pin-cushioned with axes and knives, or stone knives and such, as Belle and them are running towards downstairs. As they come up with the same progress, as Welf and them have the whole thing, as Belle's this may be useful. As he counts magic resistance, as he cast it, that's when a bunch of monsters jumped around a corner, As then they blew fire at him. As he's like used his arms to shield himself. As that happened, though, he was just bathed in flames. As then he used frost breath, as he just froze them, as they all just keeled over and went in the whole puff of smoke or whatever. As Bell says, as he rubs his throat, he's like, are you okay, Master Bell? He says, I'm fine. I haven't been using the voice that much. It's just sometimes when I try to use a lot of words one after another in that kind of simultaneous manner, could do a lot. As she's like, yeah, you were using that magic quite a lot, man. You should probably stop using it for a bit. He's like, I'll try. As Wolf says, are we gonna make it, Bell? He's like, most definitely. We just gotta find the correct way up. It's as Lily then says, we could go down. As it's like, what? Sorry. As then she gives the whole plan about using the floors to go to floor 18. That way they can meet up with the Loki Familia. As Bell says, it's a good plan. Should work. As in, it's like, wait, hang on a second. What about getting down there without hurting ourselves? As it's like, that goes, this thing right here, I heard that people talk about how it goes straight down to floor 18. But, it's like, we don't have any climbing gear, Lily, but we do have him. He could go down, use his words of power, so that way we can land safely. He's like, well, not words of power, but his magic. It's like, I know I could, but I don't know if I could stop you guys. It's like, shouldn't be that hard, right? You could cast that ice form on us. From what I can tell, even after I watched it, as one of those monsters were encased in ice, and then some of the rubble fell on it, it wasn't even crushed whatsoever. It just sort of crashed onto it as it just stayed there. Whatever ice magic you use, it's supreme. It's superb, Bell. As he's like, no. I don't want to risk it. We'll use your same thing that you're planning on, but let's try to find a different hole. Or different holes. And he's like, wait, by what chance is this the same hole you're talking about? Same thing I've heard all over. Well, do you not listen to the taverns? Got points. As then they start making their way down the levels, as it's hop. As then Mikado and them all confess their sins or whatever to them, as Hermes is like, yes, we'll help. Clap, clap, clap. I like this guy, Bell and such. As Finn, the captain, never took Bell on the offer to learn more about these cultists and what Bell said. Eyes wanted to, but Finn pretty much told her she wasn't allowed to, otherwise she wouldn't be allowed to go adventuring. As then Bell is focusing on cutting through these monsters, Finn did debate with Reveria and such to bring it up to Loki. As Bell specifically said, do not tell any of the gods or anything about this, because they would want to rush off and fight the thing. But even their power, even Aurorio's power, is not a match for whatever the thing has ascended to. It's far superior than anything the gods could throw at it. Even if some of the gods were to use their almighty power, it may not be enough. This is what Bell says. As he gave I'm just giving a more detailed explanation of what he did. As that's what they thought. As Finn and them, Bell and them eventually reach to the bottom level, or to floor 18. As then as at that point Lily and Welf are still completely out of it, as Bell's like, as he lifts them up, it's like, alright. Let's see if I can make it the rest of the way, friends. I know I can. As he's like, oh, I'm just tired. As he lets off a prayer, as Wolf and Lily, through their sort of ideas, like, Bell, as they hear him whispering, from what they don't hear him whisper, he's like, Akatosh, Kinnerith, Stendar. Well, hang on. Who would be the best god? He's like, by Kinnerith, Mara, Debella, Akatosh, Stendar, Julius and Zulius, whatever their stupid names were. Give me enough strength to carry them to the edge of this. Please don't let that thing wake up, as Lily said it would. Lily said it. As then he got to the very end, as he just collapses down, as they eventually roll out right in front of Eyes Wallenstein, as he's like, Eyes, thank. As she's like, thank. As she heard Akka, and then that's it. She's like, Akka. As then, eventually, the Loki Familia lift them up and take them to their tents. And that's where I'm going to be ending this one off at. I hope y'all have enjoyed it. Hope y'all continue to enjoy it. And I hope y'all have a nice day, nice night, nice